I used to work as a kindergarten teacher, and on my birthday, three of my students decided to bring me a gift. The first student's name was Tom, and his dad owned a candy store. Tom walked up to me in class and he handed me a nice little gift wrapped box. I thanked him for the gift and then I started shaking the box to guess what was in it. Tom got excited. After 20 seconds of me shaking the box, I said, "Is it candy?" Tom got a little upset because I guessed the gift before I opened it. So he went back to his table to sit down. The second student name was Mariah, and her dad owned a kitchen appliance store. She walked up to me and she handed me a box that was wrapped so fancy, and it was about the size of a football. I took the box and I asked her could I try to guess what was in it. Mariah agreed, and then I started shaking the box, and after 40 seconds I said, "Is it a toaster?" Mariah was surprised and she had a smile on her face. She asked me how I knew. I smiled at her and I told her it was because I had special powers. The third student name was Malik, and his dad owned a winery. He walked up to me and handed me a box that was a little bigger than what I expected. I smiled at him and then I asked him could I guess what was in the box. Malik agreed, and at this point the entire classroom was trying to see if I was going to guess it right. The box felt kind of lopsided, so I started thinking. I said this must be some expensive wine, and I seen the box was dripping liquid, so I decided to taste it. After I tasted the liquid that was leaking from the box, I noticed that it left kind of a sour taste in my mouth. Malik smiled at me. He said, "Miss Jones, you're so silly. I didn't get you wine. I got you a puppy." Today I had an appointment with a new gynecologist. When I got to the doctor's office, I started to get real nervous. I mean, this is a whole new doctor and they have to see my private area. So when the doctor called me back to the room, he noticed how nervous I looked. When I sat down on the exam table, he looked at me. He said, "There is nothing to be worried about. I am a professional. But if having a female doctor in here while I do your exam makes you feel more comfortable, then that can be arranged, since that is what you're used to." I told him that wouldn't be necessary and I'll be fine. And then he started putting on latex gloves. I could tell that he wanted to make me feel more comfortable because he started telling me a joke. Out of the blue, he asked me, did I know how latex gloves were made? I said, "No, sir, I don't." He said there is a factory in Mexico full of latex. People with different hand sizes stick their hands in the latex and then let it dry. I knew it was a joke, but I was so nervous I didn't even crack a smile. But 5 minutes later, I started laughing out loud. After the doctor heard my laugh, he had a smile on his face. He asked me what was so funny. I said, "Oh, nothing. I'm just laying here thinking about how they make condoms." I remember I was a little girl and I went to my grandparents' house for a weekend. Me and my grandfather was outside. I was playing in the garden and he was sitting on the porch. While I was playing in the garden, I seen an earthworm trying to get back into its hole in the ground. I started yelling my grandfather's name so he can come see the worm. I said, "Grandpa, I bet you I can help that worm crawl back into its hole." My grandfather looked at me. He said, "I'll bet you $10 you can't, because it's too wiggly and limp to put back in that little hole." I smiled at him and then I said, "Watch me." So I ran into the house and then I came back outside with a can of hairspray. I sprayed the worm until it was straight and stiff as a board. After that, I picked up the worm and then I put it back into its hole. My grandfather stood there and said nothing. It looked like he was shocked. He just handed me my $10, and then after that, he grabbed the can of hairspray, and then he went back into the house. I watched my grandfather go back into the house, and I just shrugged my shoulders. I started back playing in the garden. About an hour passed, and then my grandfather came back outside, and he handed me another $10. I was confused. I said, "Grandpa, you already gave me $10. As soon as I said that, I noticed that his zipper on his pants was down. After that, he said that $10 was from your grandma. So my boyfriend is a cat lover and I'm not. But before we got together, he didn't own a cat. Anyways, one day we was walking through the park and this lady was giving away free cats. My boyfriend begged me and kept asking me could we bring a cat home. I couldn't say no to him, so I eventually gave in. But anyways, the first few days with the cat was okay. One day while my boyfriend was at work, the cat decided to claw at my pillow. It was the one pillow I loved sleeping on. So I decided to put the cat in the back seat of my car and drive a few blocks away from our house and drop the cat off on the street. But when I got home, the cat was sitting there on the front porch. I don't know how this cat found its way back home, but I decided to take it back in the house. So the next day came and I decided to wait until my boyfriend went to work again. I threw the cat in the back seat of my car and this time I decided to drive a mile away from our house. When I finally made it to my destination, I threw the cat out on the street. When I got back home, the cat is sitting on the front porch again. This time I get very frustrated, but I just took the cat back inside the house. So I waited until the next day. And again, while my boyfriend was at work, I threw the cat in the back seat of my car. But this time I drove so fast and so far away from our house. I took a lot of turns trying to make sure the cat gets confused. I eventually threw the cat out of my car and onto the street. And I started to head home, but I realized I don't even know where I'm at. That afternoon, my boyfriend walked in our house and he heard the phone ringing. He answered and I said, "Hey honey, is the cat there?" He said, "Yes, why, what's wrong?" I said, "Good, because I'm lost. Put the cat on the phone."